This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Hello, welcome to episode 28 of the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English, and I hope you're having a great week so far. So I'm going to kick off today's episode with a question. Have you ever found yourself reaching for a particular food when feeling stressed or bored? Like there's that one type of food that immediately comes to mind when the day goes sideways. Maybe there's a specific type of food you crave when you're feeling sad, and another when you're feeling frustrated or angry. Have you ever noticed? Many of us have those go-to comfort foods that we turn to when life gets tough. It's like your body has a direct line to the pantry or the fridge when life throws a curveball. Today, we're exploring the world of trigger foods, those tempting treats that can lead to emotional eating and even binge eating. While these terms are often used interchangeably, emotional eating and binge eating, they represent distinct experiences. Emotional eating is when we use food to cope with our feelings instead of satisfying physical hunger. It's satisfying an emotional hunger. It's like turning to a pint of ice cream after a tough day or devouring a bag of chips when feeling bored. Binge eating, on the other hand, involves consuming large amounts of food in a short period of time, often while feeling out of control or seeming like you're out of control. I've often described binge eating as feeling like a tornado or a cyclone in the kitchen, spinning around and whirling between the pantry and the freezer and the fridge, looking for any food to eat in the path. Now, it is important to note that emotional eating can lead to a binge, which was common for me back in the day. And I'll paint the picture. So this happened a lot whenever I was trying to follow a strict diet. And I have often described myself as a serial dieter, meaning I have just been on dozens of different diets over the decades. I mean, I've probably spent well more than half of my life on some sort of a diet. And what would happen is I'd feel the urge to eat something specific after a bad day at work, let's say chocolate chip cookies. But I was trying to be good because I was on the diet. And then the restriction or the FOMO would kick in, the fear of missing out. And then one cookie turned into 12. I didn't know to pause, to recognize my thoughts or feelings before rummaging through the entire package of cookies. Harsh judgment about myself and or the food would start, and that's when I would say, F it, game over. I'd be in a full-blown binge. For a more comprehensive breakdown of emotional eating, binge eating, and overeating, I'll invite you to listen to episode 8 of the Confidence Chronicles. I went more in depth on each of these 3 eating patterns in that episode. Today, in this episode, we're going to explore the connection between our emotions and the foods we crave. I call these trigger foods. And this is a very interesting topic. So understanding the relationship between emotions and specific foods, i.e. trigger foods, is just another way to raise awareness on the habit of emotional eating. And awareness is the key to change. This is how we break the cycle and start making different and more balanced choices. So let's start with the emotions that often lead us to the kitchen or to the drive-thru or to the grocery store bakery. Stress, boredom, sadness, anger. These are just a few of the feelings that can trigger emotional eating. When we're stressed, for example, we might reach for that comforting bowl of ice cream or bag of chips. Or perhaps when we're feeling bored, we mindlessly munch on cookies or crackers. It's important to recognize that emotional eating isn't about willpower or self-control. It's a learned behavior and a way of coping with difficult or uncomfortable emotions. But understanding the connection between our feelings and our food choices is a big step towards making changes. Okay, so now let's talk about trigger foods. These are the foods you crave when you're feeling a particular emotion. And we're going to take it just a step deeper by exploring the underlying emotional needs that drive those cravings. I stumbled upon a journal entry I wrote in February 2017, which was just 2 months before my last binge. And a quick side note here, if you would like to listen to the full story about my very last binge, it's in episode 9 of the Confidence Chronicles. Okay. This journal entry was like a little gem that I found, because it included a list of emotional needs and how I used food to cope. It's a powerful reminder of how our brains can connect certain feelings with eating. For example, whenever I was stressed, I wanted something soft and sweet. Think ice cream, cake, frosting. For me, the softness of the food was comforting. And this is where texture plays a key role too. And that's often overlooked. It's important to note that the texture of food plays a pretty significant role in emotional eating as well. And speaking of the grocery store bakery that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I recall countless times I stopped after work to buy a cake with buttercream frosting and a package of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. Because what I would do is take them home, and I used to scrape the cookie along the frosting of the cake and eat it. That was my go-to after a stressful day at work. Soft, creamy, comforting. Another example that always pops into my mind is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, because hello, that was stressful. There was a lot of anxiety and worry and all those emotions. And it was December. And a vendor I worked with at the time sent a tin of holiday brownies to my house. I ate all of them. They were rich, creamy, gooey, delicious. It's that sweetness. The truth is that food is often used as a coping mechanism for a variety of emotions. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding your patterns. Blaming yourself is never helpful. Look, let me say this. Blaming yourself, blaming the food is never helpful. It just keeps you distracted. And it keeps you from recognizing the patterns. We want to understand the patterns so that we can change them. Okay, let's break down some common emotional triggers and the role food plays. So let's take a look at stress and anxiety because these are common. We turn to food for comfort. Think of a warm bowl of mac and cheese or the creamy indulgence of ice cream. It's like a hug from the inside out, calming us when we're feeling that stress and anxiety. And then there's control. When life feels chaotic, eating can provide a sense of control. It's something we can easily manage, even when everything else seems out of our hands. That became very apparent in my last binge. And again, the full story is in episode 9. But at a time when things felt very out of control, like I felt out of control, due to the circumstances in my life at the time. And the eating, emotional eating and binge eating was familiar. And it was something I could grab onto that surprisingly helped me feel in control. Very interesting. And then there's fear and intimidation. With these emotions, food can be a familiar comfort in unfamiliar situations. It's like a security blanket we cling to when we feel vulnerable. And then there's anger. Sometimes food can numb our emotions. So instead of addressing the anger, we turn to eating to distract ourselves. Boredom, eating can be a way to pass the time. We mindlessly munch without really tasting the food. With loneliness, food can provide a sense of companionship. It's always there, ready to listen without judgment. And even with emotions that seem more positive, like excitement and happiness. Well, food is often associated with celebrations and rewards. We use it to mark special occasions or to treat ourselves. And going back to the cereal dieting, how many times, like I can't even count how many times I was on a diet and I would say to myself, okay, as soon as I get to my goal or as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to reward myself with insert food, right? Pizza, cheeseburgers, French fries, the dessert that I haven't allowed myself to have, right? Food became the reward. So to truly understand your relationship with food, it's essential to identify your trigger foods. These are the specific foods you crave or look for when feeling a specific emotion, like stress in something sweet or anger in something crunchy. It can be any of the emotions just mentioned: stressed, bored, sad, mad, excited, or any other emotion. There's tons of emotions. Now, since stress was my main form of emotional eating, most of my go-to trigger foods included cake, ice cream, brownies, anything chocolate, sweetness, soft foods. Food was my friend. These foods were soothing and comforting. All right, I'd like to invite you to do a quick exercise together. So grab a pen and paper or something to take notes with. We're going to create a list of your trigger foods and the emotions associated with them, okay? So, trigger foods. What are the foods you crave most often, especially when you're feeling emotional? And then associated feelings. What emotions do you typically experience when you're craving these foods? List it out. Write the feeling that each trigger food is associated with for you. And there may be more than one. I'm going to give a personal example here. And yes, it's about ice cream. I'm realizing how many times I've referenced ice cream in this episode, okay? Ice cream was a trigger food for me. And the associated feeling, so the emotion I was experiencing most often when I was craving ice cream was stress or overwhelm. The feeling I was looking to experience from the ice cream was comfort, relief, was soothing, something soothing for me. And actually, I would also, ice cream was also a go-to anytime there was something worth celebrating, right? We used to go for ice cream all the time. And it also joy was associated with ice cream. It was really interesting to see that connection. That's an example of there being multiple emotions with a specific trigger food. Now, another common example for some people is crunchy, salty snacks like chips or pretzels. And here's a quick story. So one of my clients used to crave popcorn almost every single night. And she wanted to change this. So because she didn't understand why she kept craving popcorn, why she kept feeling like she needed to eat this popcorn, like bowls and bowls of popcorn, right? So when we did this exercise together, we learned that popcorn was connected to frustration and fear for her. She was able to connect how crunching was a way to relieve frustration. And this is common, okay? Crunching can be a way to relieve anger and frustration. This is the case for a lot of people. And for her, this information became one of the most pivotal turning points on her journey. She was able to see her pattern, and that awareness was enough to change it. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, once you've completed your list of trigger foods and the associated feelings, just take a moment to reflect on your findings. Are there any patterns emerging for you? Do certain foods consistently appear with specific emotions? By understanding these connections, we can start to challenge our emotional eating patterns. So instead of reaching for that familiar comfort food, we can try alternative coping strategies. And some coping strategies could be just pausing, right? Pausing in the moment, asking some of the questions like, what do I want more? What am I feeling in this moment? What am I thinking? What's happening right now? Do I really want this? How is this going to make me feel? Do I want to feel that way? Another alternative coping strategy could be journaling, could be going for a walk. Something different. That's what we're looking for here. Something to disrupt that autopilot behavior. Because once you start doing that, once you start disrupting the autopilot behavior, everything starts to change. And remember, as you're doing this exercise, there are no right or wrong answers. It's all about self-discovery. By identifying your trigger foods and the emotions behind them, you're taking a big step towards a healthier, more balanced relationship with food and yourself. And remember, breaking free from emotional eating does take time and it takes effort. It's about self-awareness, understanding your triggers like we've talked about today, and developing different, healthier coping mechanisms. It is okay to enjoy your favorite foods in moderation. You get to decide whatever that looks like. If you go back to the episode on pleasure food and power food, and I don't recall which episode that is, but the breakdown of that is there's room for everything. There's room for all different kinds of food. You get to decide how you want to eat and how much of each type of food you want based on how you feel and how you want to feel. The key in all of this is to find healthier ways to manage your emotions instead of automatically reaching for food. The habit of emotional eating has been formed over years. I like to describe it as kind of that it starts as a snowball and just kind of like grows over time into the bigger snowball or the boulder, right? Whatever. You've got to recognize that. And once you see it, that's how you really let it melt. Like that's how you break it, right? And always remember, you are not alone in this journey. Millions of people struggle with emotional eating and stress eating and want to change it. There are resources available to help you overcome emotional eating and binge eating. And I have a bunch of them on my website. So you can always head there, amyenglishcc.com. Click on the resources tab, and there you'll find a bunch of different things that can help you on your journey. And you can always get individual support by booking a free discovery call with me. I would love to chat with you and see if coaching is a good fit. I've been there. I struggled for a long time. I get it. And I can help you make a decision that feels right for you. Okay, until next week, be sure to follow on this podcast so you get notified every time a new episode goes live. All right, I hope you have a great week. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat to Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.